Lots, we'll start with you for the Hawks. This is a team that's lost 7 straight and looks like they're going to miss the playoffs for the first time since 07-08. So, Chip, Joanna Gaines, fix her up, or how do you fix this team?
This might be a teardown.
Yes, right. In a perfect world, it would be a teardown, but that's not going to be acceptable for Rocky Wirtz, quite frankly, or John McDonough, the ownership and the president of the Chicago Blackhawks. So Stan Bowman, Joel Quenneville, they're in a bit of a tough spot. The reality is there's no easy answer for the Chicago Blackhawks. You look at the numbers for them, their goals against, their goals for, the amount of points that they're behind. The club just dropped 7 games in a row. Okay, and what happens in this time of the year, a month out from the trade deadline, is the teams typically get together with their pro scouts. They have a meeting. That would have been about 7 games ago for the Chicago Blackhawks when things looked a lot rosier. This is a fluid equation, and that's the point. So what does Stan Bowman do from here? He's got to analyze and go through every piece of his roster. Okay, so start with the lines. Take a look at them and identify where your troublesome areas are. What's not working for you? And there's no bad players in the National Hockey League. But in a salary cap world, there are some bad contracts that go along with some of your players. And these guys right now are highlighted. They would be considered, we're always looking for surplus value for players. Well, there's not surplus right now for Brandon Saad at $6 million, or Jonathan Toews, for that matter, at $10.5, Anisimov at 4.5 for 3 more years. Sharp's on a 1-year deal. He is UFA, but you're going to immediately go to that. And then as we continue through the rest of the roster, let's pull up some more names here on the back end. Going to take a look. Duncan Keith is reasonably priced, but the performance isn't necessarily where you want it, but that's okay. Very, very good player still. Brent Seabrook is the guy on this list I would really focus in. 6 more years at 6.875. That is tough to swallow at 32 years old. And how about Connor Murphy coming over from the Arizona Coyotes? Still got 4 years left at 3.8. So you want to meet with your staff. You want to go over it. You want to look at these guys. Where's our value? Where are we hurting? And then you want to try to come up with a plan. For me, more than anything, with the salary cap situation of the Chicago Blackhawks, and I expect the cap next year, it's $75 million now. I expect it to be about $80 million. But if they want to get out of this salary cap hell that they're in right now, they're going to have to find a way to shed money. And the thing that I'm not talking about, Johnny, and I know you can appreciate it because you brought it up earlier, is, hey, look, at the Chicago Blackhawks have been an absolute stable of excellence. 3 Stanley Cups. They have done everything right. These are just repercussions of the salary cap era. But still, with the ownership they have, with the pressure this group is under, what do? I think you got to take a long, hard look at who is a potential trade partner and start at this deadline. And I would look no further than a team like the San Jose Sharks that's still pushing, that's still got a Joe Thornton, even though he's injured right now, but they're right there. And they're a team that sees themselves having an opportunity to go for a deep run, maybe challenge Nashville for the West to make it back to the Stanley Cup Finals. I'd be looking at a deal of Seabrook to them, maybe Saad as well, and taking back some players that are making a lot of money on their team, but maybe they're not as thrilled with either. You're talking about a guy like Paul Martin, who's down in the minors, and also a guy like Mikhail Boddicker. Now, why would you take those guys if you're Chicago? And you might get some other assets to flatten it out. But really what you're doing is you are reducing your salary cap any way you can, because it's going to be hard. Brent Seabrook has a no move, so you're going to have to get permission for a deal like that. A lot of tricks on pulling something off that the Chicago Blackhawks are going to undertake. I'm just making things up as examples here. It is not going to be easy for them. And we don't do this like it's fantasy hockey. We try to come up with realistic possibilities.
Yeah. The 2 guys making the most salary, Jonathan Toews, you highlighted one of the guys who's certainly not given the value for his contract this year.
Yeah.
Could it ever get to the point? I mean, if you want to clear up money, there's no
it's
bigger
absolutely a consideration. But I know the management team, I know the coaching staff, they feel so much commitment to Jonathan Toews that has brought this city so much in his time there. I don't know. if they could realistically stomach that. But in the grand scheme of a team, when we look back at mistakes maybe that people have made in the past, typically they're for keeping older players longer than they probably should have. And we just saw a trade last night that involved a guy that played incredibly well in a playoff run to the Stanley Cup, Marian Gaborik.
Yeah.
Okay, he gets moved to Ottawa. That is the right thing for the LA Kings to do. I'm not suggesting that he's Jonathan Toews, but there are examples out there where that's happened in the past.
You take the good with the bad, and you ask the other 30 teams.
We'll take those 10 years for a cap crunch.
Exactly.
And even if it comes with a couple of years of struggling.
Yep.
Yeah. And last point, and I mean this sincerely, Stan Bowman, one of the top general managers in the National Hockey League, and so is Joel Quenneville, one of the top coaches. Could these gentlemen find themselves looking for new work at the end of the year? Possibly. I think it would be a complete injustice.
Okay.